Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly review Heroes of Hammerwatch 2. This is a game that's releasing on Steam on January 14th, 2025. It is a day away as of the date and time of this recording, and what you're looking at is a preview build of the game. I've got about 70 hours or so, more hours than I would typically spend on a game. I've just been having a great time playing this, and I'm a big fan of the first one as well. In fact, this review is going to be twofold. First, I want to talk about the major differences between Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 and Heroes of Hammerwatch 2, and then I want to bring Ida Lee in, my fiancée, in order to talk about our thoughts on the second one, because she actually has more hours in Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 than I do, so she's more familiar with that game. So, in case you're wondering about Hammerwatch 2, which is a separate game from Heroes of Hammerwatch 2, that game was actually published by Maximum Entertainment, not the actual developers, Crackshell. And that game didn't do so well. Based on its mixed reviews, and from what I've seen, there were some developer and publisher issues back and forth, which kind of led to the game's, I don't want to say downfall, but there were some issues with it. But Heroes of Hammerwatch 2 is being both developed and published by Crackshell, so hopefully that will eliminate whatever issues were outstanding with just Hammerwatch 2. So, what is Heroes of Hammerwatch 2? Well, to put it simply, it's a rogue-lite. You start with 4 characters you can create. There's Wizard, Warrior, Ranger, and Paladin. But then you unlock the Rogue, the Warlock, and the Sorcerer as you continue playing. And there's a reason to create one of each character and level them up individually, because there's something called titles in this game, and they actually pass on bonuses to the other classes as they level up. It's really cool. If you've played the first game, then you'll be very familiar with that whole process. But I digress, getting back to it. As an overview, you create characters, and then you send them out, and you kill stuff, and then eventually they kill you, and then you come back with your money and your resources, and then you build up your ginormous town. That's going to take a while, because each building has different tiers, and you've got your guild hall that you're going to be leveling up. You've got a blacksmith. You've got someone that deals with potions. You've got a skill trainer. You're going to be leveling up all of these things in order to unlock new aspects and new upgrades and all that jazz. So it's just a roguelite. There's permanent progression, and you're going to be spending a lot of time doing this. And again, that is all an oversimplification of everything that is in this game. So what makes this game different than the first one? Well, first and foremost, there's gear. You're going to be getting loot, and you're going to be equipping your character with different kinds of loot. There's rarity, there's green loot, there's blue loot, there's regular loot, and all that jazz. And this gear is super important, because it's going to be improving your character along with your attributes as you level them up. But this gear was not in the first game, and what's even cooler is that depending on the weapon that you have equipped, you'll be able to do different things. So if you have an electric staff, like a lightning staff, equipped, it's got a primary attack and a secondary attack, and they're different than, say, a fire staff or an ice staff, whatever. Or maybe a double-handed axe, you'll have different primary and secondary attacks compared to, say, a two-handed maul. So you can pick and choose what weapons you like and give it a go. There's even storage in town, albeit this is a weaker part of the game. There's no sort. It just kind of auto-sorts for you, and there's no way to sort by rarity, by class, by type. This makes inventory management a pain. Yes, you can create tabs, and you can kind of sort them that way, but I was expecting a little bit more with this. This is just bare bones, and as someone that I just don't want to spend all my time trying to organize all this inventory. I'll eventually throw a lot of this out, but for right now I'm just kind of throwing everything into this stash until they come up with some kind of sort feature. Another new thing, specializations. Once a class hits level 10, they'll be able to switch between 3 different specializations at will. So if you don't like one, you can always swap to a different one, and you can even assign skill points to the active and passive abilities to make them more powerful. In the first Heroes of Hammerwatch, there was something called Soul Link. Whenever someone died, someone else could resurrect them. However, they were soul linked, meaning that if one died, the other one died. And you can get rid of it at a cemetery. In this game, you can revive someone, there's no soul link, but everyone's maximum health will be reduced. And this will continue over time. The more people die and get resurrected, the lower everyone's max health ends up becoming. In a solo game, you're just SOL. You have one life and that's it. Now, one thing I really like is that instead of losing everything when you die, like in the first one, you bring back stuff when you die, but at a penalty. In the first game, there were mine shafts, and if you found those, you can send what you had to town before you died. But typically, if you died, that was it. You lost everything. In this game, there are birds, eagles, whatever, that you can send stuff back to town. But also, if you die, you get to bring stuff back, but at a penalty of I think it was 40% at the start. And then as you upgrade your chapel, that gets reduced. So I'm really liking that. That reduces the grind tenfold and makes runs a lot less frustrating. So one thing I felt like they retracted from was the fountain. In the first one, there was a fountain that you could go to before a run in order to modify various aspects of the run. And you could make these positive and negative changes, and there'd be like a balance scale thing going on, and there was a cost to it as well. But you could adjust this and adjust that. It was really cool. In this game, yeah, there's a fountain, but it's just for looks. But there's the architect instead, and there's it's very, very small choices. I'm not happy with them. There's way less options than in the first game, and you're gonna pay wood or money or stone, whatever, to activate these positive effects, but there's no balance scale thing going on like in the first one. So I'm not really liking that. I want them to bring the fountain back, honestly. Some other side things of note, there's no keys now, so you don't have to worry about getting silver keys and bronze keys and gold keys, whatever. So that's good. And they've added attribute points, unlike the first one. In this game, you can actually increase strength, dexterity, intelligence, vitality, focus. And there's even a little key on the bottom left that tells you what each of the different symbols means. So if you're wondering which one should I increase, well, there's a little guide there. And there's also some guides available in your actual little RPG sheet. So that extra touch is really cool. I'm really digging the RPG side of this. So before we move over to the whole review side of it with Ida Lee, I just want to touch on a couple of other things that bothered me a bit. I feel like the information in Heroes of Hammerwatch 2 is lacking compared to 1. What you're looking at now is primarily Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 footage. There was a larger set of accomplishments that you could complete in the first one. There was a bestiary. You could see what classes have defeated what bosses, so you knew what you needed to work on next. That was really cool. There was even a gambling thing in the first one, a gambling mini game where you had to draw cards. You could even roll trinkets to bring with you. In Heroes of Hammerwatch 2, you can't do that. You can buy equipment from the blacksmith, but you can't roll on trinkets to bring with you to start with. That's just weird. So I feel like the first game actually had more stuff in it than the second one, and that bothers me a bit. I'm hoping that they reintroduce some of this stuff over time with patches, but, I guess we'll see. Oh, and I should add, no pets. At least based on the 60 hours I've played. I have not seen a single pet. There were pets in the first one. Okay, so with all of that comparison stuff out of the way, I brought Ida Lee in, and we're going to talk for a little bit now about what we think of Heroes of Hammerwatch 2. And keep in mind, this is still a preview build, even though the game is out tomorrow, as of the date and time of this recording. And stuff is still subject to change, and we have not beaten NG0 yet. So maybe there's going to be a feature or two that we will see upon beating the boss for the first time. And she even provided me, Ida Lee, with a list of changes. I didn't get to them all, but she provided me with a nice list of changes comparing the first to the second one. I'll go ahead and plaster that onto the screen here. It's very unappealing, but feel free to pause it if you want to read it in greater detail. I did not bother to proofread it or change all of the exclamation points that are plastered all over the place. Thank you, by the way.
Oh
So,
boy.
yes, it's fine. So, yeah, just you can pause the video and check out the different comparisons that she thought of. And I covered some of them I didn't because I didn't have time. So, Idly, what did you think of the second one in comparison to the first one?
I actually I enjoy it. I really do. I think it's kind of hard. It's really hard to say because I have 1,898 hours in the
Oh my
first one.
gosh.
Yeah. So, and I have only 61 hours in this one, in the second one. So, the first one I hold dear, to my heart,
Mm-hmm.
but I really am enjoying the second one quite a bit. There's a few things to get used to. I'm not sometimes I'm not used to it, and it kind of makes me want to play the first one. Um but
What anything in particular?
um it just kind of the flow of it, I guess. The maps are really large, so it feels more like it kind of it overwhelms me a little bit. Like, I don't even know if that's the right word, but I'm winded. I'm so winded after playing the second one, just one match. So when I die, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta do this all over again.
What's the average length of time that you take blowing through a run in Heroes of Hammerwatch 1? Is it like 10 minutes? Because you're high level.
Well, okay, so if I'm doing an actual speed run, it probably takes probably less than 5 minutes. I want to say my record is like 3 minutes
Oh
and
my
five
god.
seconds, something like that. But if I'm like taking my time or trying to help others, carrying others, I guess, then it'll take a little bit longer. Maybe like 10 minutes, 15. Whereas in the second one, it takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So, but again, that's just because I'm low level and I'm not almighty yet. Yet.
Mm-hmm.
Keyword yet.
But I kind of see what you're saying about the maps being larger. Like the town is larger
Hmm.
than compared to the first one. Um, Whenever I'm like exploring like one of the maps, like the forest or the
Hmm.
caves, I just feel like there's a lot. It feels like it's never ending sometimes compared
Yeah.
to the first one. Like with like the pyramid DLC from the first one,
Hmm.
using your palette and you could dash from one end to the other within seconds.
Hmm.
Whereas if you even try to do that with your rogue in the second one, it's still going to take you like 5 minutes to get from beginning to end of that map. So
Yeah.
I do think that this has more in it. Like just the maps are larger overall. Uh,
Yeah.
Were there anything else that
Y-
you didn't care
yes.
for or cared for?
Something that I didn't care for that I actually don't have on the list is the it's really, I don't know how to explain this, but it feels, the first one feels more smoother. So in the second one, there's kind of a delay, or it's kind of tough to press on the keys when you're trying to do multi attacks, whereas in the first one, it's a lot smoother. For example, the sorcerer in the second one has an ability that is very similar to the first one, where you shoot lightning balls, like, from out of your body, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of shards that come out and hit the enemies. It is a lot smoother and it flows more effectively in the first one, and it just feels good. Whereas in this second one, it feels hard. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it feels hard, like harder.
Is there like a delay in your button presses? Is that what you mean, or is it something else?
I It feels like a delay, but it's not. Sometimes it just doesn't come through, and I've
Mm-hmm.
tested it, and I've adjusted my control settings, and I don't there's nothing wrong with the keys because I can do it when there's no enemies, but when I'm in the heat of battle and I'm trying to multi shoot, it's a lot harder. I have to press my mouse keys so much harder,
Mm-hmm.
in order for it to come through, and it doesn't flow as naturally. But with a lot of the negatives There are so many positives, and I think that Hammerwatch 2, Heroes of Hammerwatch 2, you get a lot of content out of it, especially with the new equipment and specialization aspects with
Mm-hmm.
it. So I'm really not trying to knock down the game. I think it's a great game. I think anyone who's a fan of the first one should absolutely play the second one.
Mm-hmm. I think, and to address what you just said, I think people just need to understand that any negative critique is just that. It's meant to, it's something that you bring forth to the developer's attention so that they can possibly make the game better. I don't see negative critique as negative. I see it as just something that it's a suggestion that you're bringing forth. So feel free to keep them coming. Without negative critique, games cannot
Mm-hmm.
improve. But on the other side of that, like you said, there is a lot of positives, and I feel like Heroes of Hammerwatch 2 added things, but they also removed things. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of sad that there's no pets. I'm kind of sad that
Yeah.
the fountain, like the fountain from the first one, was a lot more fun to play around with, whereas this architect just kind of feels like a fountain, like point 0.5. Like it's half of a fountain.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the first one had more meat and potatoes. Whereas this one, I feel like is more streamlined for the casual player. And as a casual player myself, I appreciate that, trust me. But at the same time, I can see some experienced Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 people playing the second one and going, well, where's this? Where's that? That's from the first one. Where is it now? This bestiary, is not as big, or the achievement list isn't as big, or this and that. So I can see that. And I'm sincerely hoping that they continue to patch this game after the fact to like bring it up to where the first one was and then some,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what a sequel should be. A sequel should be an improvement on the first one. And if
Mm-hmm.
all of those things from the first one were adding value, then they should also be in the second one.
Yeah,
So
I
I
agree with
I,
that.
I don't know what the developers were thinking on that end of it. And like you said, I'm not trying to bring a bunch of negativity here. This is something that folks need to know. If people go to buy a game, they need to know what they're getting. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
as of right now, that's what they're getting. And again, as I said, we're 60 hours in. We did not beat NG0 yet. We're still working
Mm-hmm.
on it. We're close. We got to the final boss. We're very close.
I will say,
Mhm.
I do know that after NG0, it is going to make my hair get pulled because
The curse.
there is, yes, and I'm not looking forward to that. I will say, I think it's cool. I think it's a cool thought, but I'm dreading it. I
For those of you
really
that
am.
don't know, the Pyramid DLC from the first game, Heroes of Hammerwatch 1, the Pyramid DLC added a curse mechanic. And they've brought that back here. In fact, during the preview build, it was actually a default thing in our NG0 runs. But some people were complaining about it, so they moved it to NG1 plus.
Hmm.
So now you will not experience curse now in your NG0 playthroughs, but you will experience curse in your NG1 plus. And what curse does is I think it lowers your armor in this game, whereas in
Yeah,
the
your
other
armor
game it causes you
continues.
to miss all the time.
Hmm.
Hmm.
It was in the first one, it was really brutal because not only did it cause you to miss, it brought down no, it was you get a percentage chance of getting a critical attack right in your face, like damage.
Yeah.
And in this one, it seems like curse only decreases your armor and resistance. And the more you stack that up, the more it's going to hurt. The nice thing about curse in the first one is that it was a lot easier to dodge. In this game, when we sampled it, I guess, on NG0, it was not a very easy thing to dodge, and you can just fall flat on your face very early on if you rack up too much curse.
I had 20 some curse at one point. It was just brutal. I couldn't react fast enough.
Hmm.
How did you feel? And this is something you had written down on your list. No enemies on the map until you get close enough. In the first one, all of the enemies were dots on the minimap or the map. Is that
Hmm.
correct? Whereas in this game, you
Yes.
don't actually see the enemies until
Yes.
even with the architect ability unlocked to see the whole map, it
Hmm.
doesn't show
Yep.
enemies at all. It's just a
Not
blank
at
map.
all.
Yeah. So
It kind of honestly, I hate that only because I want to get XP and I want to clear the map of enemies. And even if it takes me all day to traverse the whole map, and the fact that there's no enemies to be seen until you get close enough, until you explore every aspect, it kind of stinks because you can't really plan.
mhm.
And even with the architect, even with the remove fog of war. So that's kind of unfortunate. That's a thing I'm not too fond of.
Mhm.
But again, though, like I'm not trying to fault it because I have spent so much time in Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 that it's there's so much that's changed, you know. It's not always for the worse. It's just that it's changed and I have to get used to those changes. That's all it is.
Mhm. And some people don't respond well to change.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. How do you feel about the town upgrades and the like? The town. Do you feel like it's beefier to level up?
Uh, yes, I do. Um, it's a lot more grindier, that's for sure. I think. To be honest, though, I don't really remember how I
Oh,
upgraded my
because I'm
first
level
town
three
because,
thousand now.
well, it's been a while, so, um, but I'm definitely feeling the struggle here in the second one.
Mhm.
Um, as for the buildings themselves, I think they're okay. I think there's more buildings now because we have equipment. So we can actually buy equipment and enchant equipment. And it's okay. You know, I think it's kind of the same aspect of it as the buildings.
Mhm.
The town is definitely larger, that's for sure.
Mhm.
It's huge compared to the first one.
One thing I don't like from my current run is that I've unlocked these buildings and I've been upgrading them, but I haven't used them once because I'm starved for, say, skill points. So
Hmm.
you can spend skill points in skills at the skill trainer, which is to make your abilities better. But you also spend skill points at like weapon, like you can modify your weapon, like your maces get a 3% bonus, or your staves get a 3% increase in damage. It's just you can choose what weapon to increase using skill points. You can also modify trinkets with skill points, like level them up. And
Hmm.
I've never used them once because like I'm starved for skill points, and that's a shame. And I don't know if it's that way by design, but I'm my town is now maxed level, and I still haven't used some of those things because I'm starved for skill points. And
Yeah, I think that might be intended because I vaguely remember the first one. Even if you got your town max leveled, you still have to keep grinding for additional things. And I think that's probably more of a like an end game thing to
mhm,
be able to buy everything because if you reach end game and you just kind of grind you just kind of fall into the Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 trap where you just keep leveling up with really nothing to spend on. You have nothing to do but to level up. Whereas in this one, the Heroes of Hammerwatch 2, there's actually a goal and it's a little bit harder to get because once you get really powerful, you can actually continue to do things.
mhm.
So I think that might be intended.
One of my issues also is that like I'm having a hard time beating the last boss. Like at the
Hmm.
moment the max level is 20. And I've got 5 level 20 characters, and even with my class specialist, because there's a class, there's guild titles, and
Hmm.
even with all of those level 20 characters, providing bonuses to my other characters, getting to that last boss and beating him, like it's still very difficult. I was hoping to make it at some point a cakewalk, not a cakewalk, but like it's incredibly hard still. And
Hmm.
that's what I mean, like I still feel starved for skill points because I want to get that boss down. I really do. I thought it would get easier, and it's not. you
Hmm.
know there.
Yeah, there might be a meta to it, maybe. Maybe there's like a
Maybe.
certain particular build.
Hmm.
Maybe you just got to keep grinding out for the skill points. Because I will say this. So in Heroes of Hammerwatch 1, I cannot beat. Now I'm NG 200 and something, right?
Hmm.
I cannot beat NG 50 without my meta build. So
I see.
there's like there's a specific build, even with everything maxed out, even with the insane amounts of stats that I put into my ranger, I still cannot beat an NG50 without my super mega drink build and my statue build, which actually brought me all the way up to NG200 and something. So I wonder if it's just the same thing in this one. Like there's a super meta build.
There's gonna be a meta at some point, I'm sure, and I'm noticing that already. Like I'm noticing certain melee classes like fare awful, like say the rogue or whatever against say a boss, or maybe a ranged class that can't heal at all, like the sorcerer, like sucks against bosses because there's no way to mitigate damage. So like whereas the paladin is so tanky and can self heal, and it's so much easier to play as the paladin. So like I get what you're saying. I think there's going to be certain favored classes for doing certain things, and I'm sure there's going to be meta builds on top of that. But anyway, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because this is your chance to get it all out.
I think what would have been cool was like if there were certain checkpoints between acts or between levels where you can kind of switch out your classes, or at least switch out your specializations so that they can I don't know, fit better with the boss that is for that level or for that room.
Yeah,
I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, my warrior, or I have a couple of builds for mob killing, just like AoE totems or whatever. But they suck against bosses because it's a wide open area and they're always moving around. So the range on those totems or the sorcerer's lightning ball is so small. It does a couple of ticks of damage and that's it. So yeah, I get what you're saying. I wish you could swap specializations and then switch to something a bit more single target DPS heavy, as opposed to like a ranged AoE kind of thing. But
yeah. All in all, though, this is a fantastic game, and it's a heck of a grind. If I thought HOH1 was a grind, no, this is a crazy grind. But I am enjoying it, and it is really awesome to see the progression. And just gotta, be mindful of all the things that you allocate your stars and your stat points and stuff.
And I do recommend this game. And I give it a lot of flack, but that's my job. I am here to point out. I am not one of those shills that only give positive remarks on something. I tell it like it is. If you want my honest opinion, I'm going to give it to you. And I think with honest feedback, that's how developers grow their games. But I think that I've already got 60 hours in, and this game's going to be, I'm sure, between 10 and 25 at launch. I don't know the exact price. Hammerwatch 2 was $10, and if I had to guess, Heroes of Hammerwatch 2 is going to be anywhere from 15 to 25. With 60,
you said Hammerwatch. So the original Hammerwatch 2.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, the RPG Hammerwatch 2 with its mixed reviews is like $10 on Steam. Whereas I think that this Heroes of Hammerwatch 2 is going to be anywhere from 15 to 25 bucks. I don't know the exact price yet, but it is worth it. The 60 hours I've already put into it has been a blast. I've been playing. I have other games to get to, and I've been putting them off to play this. That should
70
say
hours for the record.
I know. I'm living and breathing this game so far. That's a testament. That is a testament. And I typically don't do that. Because I've got other things to do. So my advice is, if you've got a group of friends, play this game together. It's loads of fun. There is even one thing I forgot to mention. There's a drop-in, drop-out mechanic. So in the first one, you have to lobby up first and then run. In this game, people can just drop in while you're playing. So as long as you've got your online mode on, that's really cool. And the game will supposedly adjust the difficulty accordingly. So I like that. That's a huge step up. That opens the door for a little bit of cheesery.
A little bit.
Like if you die, a friend can come in, res you, and leave, and then you can just keep going. I don't know how that works, or if it could work that way. I'm just saying it could be cheesed, but I still appreciate that. So I think this game is making steps in the right direction. I would like to see stuff from Heroes of Hammerwatch 1 brought over, so that it's a complete sequel. That's my biggest wish right now. And I'm missing like the priest. I don't care so much about the witch hunter from the first one, but the priest from like a dedicated healing class would be so cool. I would like something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, folks. Well, there you go. I highly recommend this game, Heroes of Hammerwatch 2. I think Ida Lee does too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, check it out. This is Vincent Ida Lee. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all next time. Take care.
Bye, guys.